Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome in. AccuDes17 here, coming to you to give my 2 cents. Hence the name 17 and some change. Um, we're just gonna get right back into it and stuff like that. Um, I just hit record. I hope all of you guys are doing good. Um, Everybody out there in the world. We were having some really not so good weather, to say the least. Not sure if anybody noticed. If you were on the East Coast, um, you surely did notice. Um, I think they say that was the worst blizzard since '78, or it superseded the blizzard of '78. So it's pretty wild because, in New England, growing up, you always heard about, oh, the blizzard of '78, the blizzard of '78. That was always like the barometer to test blizzards on, and snowfall and snow accumulation and stuff like that. Um, I do remember in like the early 2000s, maybe 2003, maybe 2005. There was enough snow to close school for a week. I thought that was pretty memorable, but yeah, I guess this one broke records and stuff like that. You know, um, there's a there's a child like screaming. Um, it's funny. I was talking to somebody about ADHD the other day, today, and I was telling them like I used to uh I used to get distracted in class, by like whatever was happening on the outside world, and I used to think like I can't be held accountable for not uh understanding like what was on the lesson. Like, clearly the teacher knows that a bird flew outside the window at 12:15 and distracted us. And clearly she can't expect me to remember what the lesson was when, Sally's drumming her pen. um but no, they did. They expected you to pay attention and remember, despite the cars outside and whatnot. Um, so that screaming stopped. So that's good. And I guess I'll jump around here a little bit. I have a few topics that I want to talk about. I think maybe that's why my transitions have been poor in the past, because I had topics that I wanted to talk about chronologically. And so I was like trying to force a transition from one topic to another, or I'd be like, oh, well, okay. And I would have to like forcefully like announce a transition. I don't know how much of that you ever want to be doing. Um, but we're talking about taking accountability and stuff like that. And I recently ran into an older gentleman who, um he was, you know, older. He was older, let's say, uh um, let's say like no longer in his 50s, and and um he's upset. He's in a place where he's blaming his mother for all of his shortcomings in life. Anything, it all his lamentations circle back to his mother, and you know and he's at a point where like he can't wait until she's gone, and and just everything, like just everything circles back to that. And you know we understand difficult parents. I can see how parents can be difficult and be burdensome, and um, be terrible people. Like they could actually be terrible people. Like I have a whole thing on this. Like I speak extensively to bad people and what happens when your parents are bad people, and in like in pretty much the clinical term, in like the clinical way. Like I understand there are plenty of parents that are psychopaths and narcissists and et cetera, right? There are plenty really shitty parents, but the question comes is like, at what age do you take responsibility for um, where you're going? Um, at what age do you take responsibility for your own decisions and the things that you can control? Um, when do when do you say, hey, this person did the best that they could under their circumstance, or I wish they could have done better, but uh, carrying the bitterness isn't helping me anything. Um, you forgive them for your own sake, and you learn to appreciate the fact that you survived, and that you're a survivor. You learn to appreciate, um, that it could have been worse. It could always be worse. You know, I say you survived. Some people, they don't survive to see their second birthday. And that's a truly unfortunate thing, and you can be thankful that you get to, and stuff like that. You know, um, so. Eh, yeah. Um, I guess the big news in the world right now is what's going on in and a lot of that sometimes is ego. You don't want to like admit to your own shortcomings and stuff like that, and it's hard work. It's hard work to do the right thing and to um set yourself up properly and orientate yourself properly, despite um, the injustices that you've had to survive through and stuff like that. But part of it is, yeah, like I said, part of it is ego, not wanting to admit that you know some of your flaws are like everybody knows they could be doing more. The people who aren't doing enough, a lot of people are mad at themselves. Truly, they're mad at themselves, and because deep down they know they could push themselves a little bit, and they're not, and it's easier to you know find that scapegoat and stuff like that. If you're 60 years old, there should be nothing that your 90-year old mother can do to to ruin, like there should your 90-year-old mother should not have power over you if you're 60. If you're um you know in your 30s, it's the same story, you know. And these are things that we've talked about before, as far as like reclaiming your own sanity around crazy people, you know. um you just don't bother with them, and when you have to, you don't react, and if it gets ridiculous enough, um you leave, and but to and there is no specific age, right? It's a scale for everybody. It's different. There's no specific age, but there kind of is. Like there's a age bracket. Like I think when you're getting into your 30s, I think if you're getting into your mid to late 20s and 30s, I think that's the range. Like if you're like, I'd say the range, and I'm not an authority. Like you could very realistically make it younger, but um like if by 24 to like 24 to like 30 ish, you know what I mean? um I was relatively late. I didn't, you know stop blaming certain life circumstances uh for various things until into my 30s, so everybody stops feeling sorry for themselves at a different point in time, you know. um for me, I think I was always uh oriented towards resiliency, and I had enough heartbreak and enough uh, life changing events that um, that I was able to kind of just you know get over that, so to speak. Um, you know, and just also learning about accountability and um, mental health. Now in the mental health world, positive psychology is becoming a thing, which is really fascinating. When I entered this profession uh, six, 5 years ago or so, um, it was very, very victim mentality. It was they the culture was very much to placate to victim mentality. Um, and we still we will always remain. I think the culture will always remain sensitive to traumas, and sensitive to sensitivity in general. Um, you know, we understand that certain people are sensitive, and that's just what it is. Um, but there's a direction um, that seems to be picking up momentum where the idea is to look at areas that you can grow in, and to look at your strengths, and to um, you know not so much focus on like what are your traumas. And now, given, like, that has its place, in time, but um I think the idea of self efficacy and uh, accountability um, is a great that's a great direction for anybody. That These are great pillars for anybody to hold on to stave off despair and bitterness, right? um, yeah, yeah, you know you know so that's what I think. That's what I think about that and stuff like that. you know Hmm. But I guess the big news of the day, the big news of the big news of the day, the big news of the past couple weeks is the Iran situation. And it's funny, I asked somebody about their thoughts on it today. They were like, "Ee," because like that's another one of those politically charged topics and stuff like that. The timing, like, what are we doing there? Um, and that was my question, like, what are we doing there? Is it just are we going there for a specific operation, and once our objectives are complete, we're getting out? Or is it going to be the case of, oh, one more thing, and oh, since we're here, and different stuff like that? I don't know. I think we've had this idea in mind for a long time. I mean, we've always been uh, our stance has always been that we don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. That has always been our stand. I thought we blew up their capabilities last month or however long ago it was when we did bombs all over the place on them. But I don't know if the scope of this operation is going to continue to grow and turn into like a never ending type thing. And, the timing, some people are talking about, oh, well, we did Venezuela to like procure oil so that when we did Iran, um, I feel like these are kind of more, I don't want to say conspiratorial because some people really hold firm to the idea that all war is fought for oil over oil and stuff like that. But I feel like the precipice for entry into Iran wasn't. Um, I feel like it was Israel's actions that created a kind of a perfect situation, so to speak, timing wise, for the states. Now one could say, well, Israel is the U.S. or the U.S. is Israel. I mean, just because they're that deep in bed together, but and like Israel wouldn't have done that without the U.S. like knowing and signing off, um, and or vice versa. But I don't know. Um, um, so I know in the meantime, just coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, but in one of our first strikes of Operation Epic Fury, we eliminated a large congruent. Um, we eliminated multiple leaders. We killed the Ayatollah. We killed the Amami Ayatollah, like their top head, like the top head of the thing, and and we also ended up killing all the people that were gathered to like we killed like backups too. Like we killed like the potential backups like later on in the week. And but I guess the new Ayatollah is gonna be the dude's son. So it's a son of a Khomeini. And I don't know how much better that is. I mean, the and this gets into it because the guy he was some people they'll try to defend Iran and the radical regime, talking about how from their point of view America is the bad guy sitting with the cigar, and because of the gluttony, because of the greed, because of the sexual immoralism, and all these different things. And then, we are perfectly valid when we paint them out to be the bad guys, due to the oppression that they have for women and the oppression that they have for gays and um, the quick how quick to just the barbaric um nature, even compared to modern Western conservatism, just the barbaric nature of Sharia law, um, which is, of course, what these leaders advocate for and implement, and that that's no doubt what this child is gonna this new leader is gonna want and do and stuff like that, and ultimately, uh, regardless of who's right and who's wrong, it's like Sharia law and you know the Western ideals in general, they just don't mix. And last time I checked, it's not. Uh, People will make the argument like, "Oh, Americans are kind of xenophobic in general, right?" And the last time I checked, we don't in our schools teach our children to hate other nations and chant death to America or death to Israel or death to anybody, right? Last time I checked, that's not a practice that we're into. Um, I think it's very difficult for a lot of Westerners to wrap their heads around the hatred that um, people have for us, and that could potentially be a downfall if it's not recognized and looked out for. Yeah, we all wish we could get along and stuff like that, but you know jealousy breeds enemies. Content breeds animosity, and yeah, a lot of places they're disgusted by us, But we have our freedoms, and we have our uh, voting, and we have freedoms is so encompassing. It's we have the right um, to do all these forms of expression, but it's just the two ideologies, the two worldviews, just they're not compatible. They're not compatible. You have to really water down um, one to fit in with the other. Um, but it is what it is. It was funny. I was seeing on my algorithms, I was watching Iranians in the streets, Iranian Americans and Iranians celebrating when the U.S. and all over TikTok, like thanking the U.S. and being so happy for liberation and stuff like that. And now I'm starting to see on left networks. The left is showing a lot of like protests and stuff like that. But so I didn't see anything about a school bombing. I would I would wager a lot. I would wager a lot. Like if I'm not a betting man, but like Kalshi had a bet or something like that that says, "Do you think the U.S. intentionally bombed a school?" I would wager very heavily, despite the odds, regardless of the odds, that the answer was no. Especially when I know um, that the a lot of um, a lot of Islamic nations have state funded television and state funded news sources. And if this is reports coming from them, I don't think you could trust really anything coming reports from there. Um, and that would be really completely counterproductive, counterintuitive. That would make have no you're doing a war against somebody in the 21st century where cameras are everywhere and you're gonna intentionally bomb a school. Like, you're not that doesn't make any sense. Now, given we know in Palestine, they like to put their military operations and their tunnels and stuff like that. They like to put them underneath hospitals and underneath schools and stuff like that. It's smart, right? Um, but no, no, I don't think that happened. I haven't seen enough evidence to support that being uh, any legitimate any legitimacy to it, you know. Um so I guess MJ, um Michael Jordan made a statement on the GOAT debate, and he essentially I agreed with him. You know what I mean? If I had to say, like, if I was hard pressed, like, my GOAT, so to speak, has always been Kobe Bryant. I've always been like, yeah, if I had to choose one player to start a team or one player to do this or one play, like, first pick overall for me, my first pick in a fantasy draft, in any fantasy draft, no matter what, like, it's Kobe Bryant. Um, but I think Kobe had well, let me get into to MJ's point. One of the point that he was making, um, and I have other reasons, myself, and I think Kobe had a reason that kind of matched with the way I see it. Um, but MJ's point is completely valid, also, and it's definitely part of what we're seeing is he said he never clamored over being the greatest of all time as a title because he recognizes that the game is constantly evolving. Um, so if player two, so we're in 2000. Player 10 learned his moves from players 1 through 8 and added a touch to it. And then player 10 learned his moves from players 1 through 9, and player 9 learned his moves from players 1 through 8. Player 8 learned his moves from players 1 through 7. Um, every new generation has more information, they have more film to build on. They have more examples of proper basketball. Um to look at, and there's more moves. Like um, if you take if you go back, and it's hard to tell between like one generation and another. Like it's hard to tell really between MJ and Kobe. You know, it's hard to tell how, it's hard to see like the small steps uh forward. But if you go back to like go back all the way to the beginning, to the first basketball that was ever handed to somebody, um and you told them, and you look at all the ways that they, you know, demise to get the ball in the hoop, it would be far different. It would be far different, and they wouldn't have a, a, a a bag. You know, the bag just grows and grows as the league exists longer and longer. You know, um, before anybody jumped from the free throw line, nobody jumped from the free throw line. After somebody jumped from the free throw line, everybody started jumping from the free throw line. Now a free throw line dunk isn't what it used to be. Like a free throw line dunk, like, well, a 1 foot in free throw line dunk. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about a 1 foot in free throw line dunk anymore. You know. So the game's always evolving. You don't exist less unless without the people that came before you, you don't exist. You know, and that's a valid